Before I start the video, I just wanted to mention that I have a second channel I'll be working on where I'm going to make dedicated gaming related content. I'll have a link for that in the description box. So if that is or even isn't your thing, please give that a subscribe. I really appreciate it and thank you so much. Saving money wasn't really something I was taught how to do. And one could argue that there really isn't even anything to it than to just simply save. But I found a few things over the years that have definitely helped me find saving much easier and rewarding. The things I'm going to talk about today are ways of thinking I adopted, as well as practical steps that could be taken in order to reaching some of those savings goals I've set for myself. This is how I became better at saving money. But first, if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. Here we talk about minimalism, frugal living, tech, and things of that nature. So if that sounds good to you and you end up liking the video, be sure to like and please emote on the subscribe button. Let's get started. Plan before purchase. While this might seem like the most obvious and logical thing to do, there was a time I was much more spontaneous with my spending. And a lot of purchases had virtually zero thought or planning put into it. And it really just came down to having a buy it now, figure it out later attitude. I really wasn't too surprised when I noticed how much I was able to save when I would simply plan out any and especially big purchases. Planning for these purchases allowed me to arrange my priorities and allocate money accordingly. Whether it was setting aside a certain amount of money every paycheck or waiting for something to go on sale, I always made sure I carefully planned my purchases, leaving me to be able to set aside money to save while still being able to make these purchases. I recommend trying to be a little bit more careful with your purchases and finding a system for planning that makes sense for you. Quit small spending habits. Embarrassingly enough, there was a period of time where I was buying something every single day from the convenience store before I went to work. And while in the moment a $3 item never really seemed expensive, doing the math to find out it would be around $60 to $100 every single month really hurt. And to be honest, this was worse when I was truly caffeine addicted, and I would do or pay anything just to get rid of that caffeine withdrawal headache. Don't get me wrong, if I'm somewhere and I see something small that I want, I don't completely deprive myself. But the point is, I'm able to control this small spending and moderate it much better. I've made it a point to save all the money that was otherwise spent on these small daily items, and I've absolutely noticed a growth in my savings for it. I recommend finding areas of small spending where you think you could cut back or even get rid of altogether. Assess my values. And a much more simple analogy for this would be wants versus needs. The point is, once I figured out where my priorities and my values were, it became much less of a chore to actually save money. Identifying my priorities in life came along with minimalism and essentialism, and as a result, my values, when it came to money, came along as well. I prioritized saving money over a traditionally cool car and getting a Corolla, and over things like going out very frequently. Preferring to have a financial safety net and bigger goals like savings checkpoints made it really easy to avoid spending unnecessarily. And this is where there's a bit of a gray area, because some things that I value may require spending from time to time, and that's okay. What is or isn't worth spending money on will obviously vary from person to person. It's just determining where your values lie and what you think is worth spending on. Automate my routine. Automating my routine was a very simple but effective thing that I implemented to make saving money consistent and painless. Basically, every time I got paid, I prioritized moving as much as I could into my savings without compromising my ability to pay my monthly responsibilities. This was really effective because it forced me to put away money into savings before I even had the opportunity to spend it, where I shouldn't have. And automating money is something I do in a lot of areas, not just saving. I've mentioned before how automating payments for bills has really worked well for me, and automating my budget is a great way to manage the monthly income that I'm working with. The point is that if I try and make putting money into savings a part of my routine and treating it as something I have to do, it usually gets done. And when it comes to growing savings, well, it's definitely done that as well. Be more appreciative of what I own. I've talked about this before specifically in videos about minimalism, but it most definitely applies to a video about money as well. It's so easy to look for the next new thing to own, thinking it'll solve all of my current problems. And even if my current problem is just boredom. But when I step back for a moment and ask myself what I really need to be content, for the most part, I have everything I need. Things like technology and fashion are always changing. And trying to keep up with those things in the past left me very frustrated and spending more than I'd like to admit. The simple act of waiting out the hype and reflecting on my needs and the things I already own that bring me joy is directly related to me being able to save more. I already own the things that I need to be happy every single day. It's usually just falling to that trap of boredom that leads to me spending. So doing things like avoiding those triggers and just being more mindful of the things I already have is the main message with this point here. Change the way I see saving. Lastly, I wanted to mention a point that really went a long way for me. It's pretty safe to say that saving money is not as much fun as spending it. And I always knew if I thought of it like this, I would always be in an uphill battle to save. Something that was really effective in changing the way I see saving was to see it as gaining something rather than giving something up. And in this case, giving up spending. Once I realized that by saving money, I'm gaining things like peace of mind, financial stability, and an emergency fund, for example, it became much easier to do and even more fun, I'd venture to say. While saving over spending might sound like the more adult, responsible thing to do, once I convinced myself that by saving, I was actually gaining these things, spending money on things I didn't need seemed like a lot less of a thing I wanted to do. And it's almost completely eliminated the fear of missing out. Anyways, these were just a few things I've been able to do that have literally made me better at saving money. I should mention, I think it's important to not completely deprive myself from having fun or doing things I want to just for the sake of saving a little bit of money, because there is a time and place for everything. As always, I appreciate the time you spent here and I appreciate you watching. I really hope you got some value from this one. If you did like this video and you like this type of content, be sure to like and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time.